All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and I know we really don't talk about politics on this channel, but a lot of you guys have been reaching out to me asking for my thoughts on this whole change that has been going across the industry. And so I wanted to talk about it and just kind of share my thoughts. As somebody that's worked in automotive, I started working in automotive in the early 2010s. I do have a lot of experience in the space and understanding, the manufacturing, supply chain, working with suppliers, launching new vehicles, managing cost and stuff like that. So, I just was going to kind of throw all of my thoughts out here. I'm not going to do this very often, so I'm just going to try to put everything in this video and just speak from my mind. I'm not going to make this a habit at all, but this is something I just thought that we could talk about one time, especially since most of my followers are enthusiasts of German vehicles. So this could definitely impact us. But let's go ahead and talk about it. Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future. So to start off, let's make sure we all have the same baseline on what's actually being proposed. So there is going to be a 25% tariff on vehicles and automotive parts that are coming from outside of the United States. Now, these tariffs are basically just a tax. I know the word tariff seems to be a little confusing for some people, so we're just going to kind of refer to it as a tax. But the same way you go to a store and buy something and they add on 6 or 7% tax onto your purchase, this would be basically a tax on any automotive part or actual vehicle. So say a vehicle was $40,000, now it's going to be $50,000 to import it. Now, the person that pays for this is whoever is actually importing it. So in the case of automotive vehicles, it's going to be the dealership. Whoever's actually ordering the car and having it brought over to them is the person that's going to have to pay for these taxes. A lot of us that are buying new cars, we look at invoice pricing because we want to understand how much a dealership paid for a car. And then, we try to add maybe 500 or 1,000 on top, whatever we need to try to get the best deal, but make sure they still make a profit. So in this case, it's that invoice pricing that's going to bump up 25% on imported vehicles. Now, there are some exemptions built into this plan primarily to help support the American economy and the American automotive industry. That's a really big part of United States manufacturing. So that is accounted for in this proposal. One is that you will have an exemption for tariffs on automotive parts that come from materials made in the United States. So let's say you made a wheel, for example. If you got the steel or the aluminum from the United States, got everything cast and forged and, finished, but maybe you send it to another country just to get powder coated or something. When it comes back, that'll probably be exempted from the tariffs because majority of the manufacturing came from the United States. The other thing is they would also provide exemptions for a percentage of the product that is from the United States. And they did a lot of calculations. I think they estimated that in total around 25% of the vehicle content in the United States right now is quote unquote made in America. So they want to try to increase that. So if you have a vehicle that's 25% made in America or 75% made in America, you'll only get tariffed on the remaining percentage that's made from materials or products manufactured outside of the country. Now, this begs the question, why is this even a thing? And in automotive, it is very common, I think pretty much universal, for an OEM to use a very diverse supply chain across the entire world. I haven't worked for a single company that didn't have an international supply chain. And one of the main reasons is because the automotive industry is just extremely volatile. There are so many things changing right now. One of the biggest things we talk about are hybrids and EVs starting to take over. But back when I started working around 2012, it was crossovers. I don't know if you guys remember when it just started going crazy, but everybody was going nuts over these slightly lifted sedans with a hatchback. That was just something you could not make enough of. And I actually worked on a vehicle platform that was in the crossover space. I thought it was going to be kind of boring, but within like a year and a half, we were one of the top 3 volume products for the entire company. And so that just goes to show you that this is something you can't necessarily plan. We completely took over our manufacturing site, and now we're the top dog. Anything they wanted to change, if it was like a universal mirror switch or cigarette lighter plug or something, all the other people had to come and ask us to make sure it wouldn't affect our sales before they could make any changes. So that's the kind of thing that automotive companies are dealing with. They're trying to chase trends, follow the market, and just make sure that they're always positioned in the best way possible so that they have, a sustainable plan for the future. So that's a big reason why you have an international supply chain, because things can change, especially nowadays. We have a lot of natural disasters and stuff that can disrupt your supply chain, and just different things where you want to be able to account for anything that can happen. Now, I do want to highlight, a lot of people just assume it's about cost, and cost is definitely a big factor when you have a very diverse supply chain and a lot of competition, a lot of different companies that can make a product for you. Cost is, of course, going to be a factor when they're bidding. But I think the biggest thing is just tenure. If you have a company that has been working with you for a long time, they have a good track record, their quality metrics are all up to where you want them to be, they typically just continue to get the product for every generation of a vehicle. So that's something that I saw. It was kind of just assumed that if you were making the windshields for a certain car, when the next generation comes out or a design change or whatever, you'll most likely get that business as well. Another big factor is risk, because again, if you've got a company that gets flooded by a tsunami or something like that, that's going to be a really big hit to your supply chain, as we've seen, the past couple years. When your supply chain gets disrupted, that has a significant impact on your production. So usually what ends up happening is, even if you have an international supplier, they make manufacturing sites near where the OEM manufacturing plant is. So a lot of people say, Ford is in Detroit, but also probably 80% of Ford suppliers are around Detroit, and they're not necessarily all companies that are based in Detroit. But even if they're based in other areas around the country or around the world, they tend to make a manufacturing site close to the business so that they reduce the risk, and it raises their ranking when they're bidding on new products and stuff like that. So if you have somebody that's 15 minutes away versus 500 miles away, you're going to be a lot more likely to work with that company because they can get you products quick. And even if they have, downtime or issues, it's something that they should be able to recover from. You might even be able to send resources over to their facility and help support getting them back up and running and fixing quality issues and stuff. So it's just a much bigger point when they're making these decisions compared to just pricing. Also, one other thing I've noted is that a lot of OEMs will have a manufacturing site in other countries just to help reduce the risk of getting product to those other countries. So if you sell vehicles in Europe or Asia or anywhere else, you're most likely going to have at least one plant in each of those regions so that you have an easier time of making products there and selling the vehicles from those sites to the neighboring countries. So that's something where not everything from an American vehicle manufacturer comes from America. A lot of it is made in plants in, Germany or the UK or China or other places, so that it's easier to get it out to their customers. So with all that said, how are we going to be affected moving forward? And I think the biggest thing to realize is that costs can't just magically go up, because the cost of a product is dictated by the market. Something you should realize is, if you see a car and it's worth $100,000 to you, it doesn't matter whether it cost the company $50,000 to make it or $200,000 to make it. $100,000 is how much you'll pay, so that's how much it is valued at. And I think that's something that a lot of people misunderstand. I've had folks say, when you're looking at a performance car, for example, why don't they just add a catch can from the factory? It only costs them $25 or something. But adding that $25 catch can isn't going to add $25 onto the sales price. Essentially, you're just throwing that money away. So they build content into a vehicle based on what they need their bottom line to be, because they expect it to sell at a certain price as the value that the market should be dictating. Now, if the market overinflates the price, as we've seen recently, it'll sell for more. If they're not interested in it at that price, they don't see the value, then it can sell for less. It can even lose money. So that's something that the OEM has to manage. And I think that's where a lot of this is going to fall back on. If they have invoice pricing going up and they want people to still be able to sell vehicles for a similar price, they're going to have to really figure out how they reduce that bottom line. If they reduce the bottom line and they reduce the cost of the vehicle, then they can still essentially reduce the invoice pricing that the dealerships will pay. And then that way the value will still be seen by the end customers. Now, of course, if you guys are all seeing the exact same car and one day you just think, hey, I kind of feel like this is worth 25% more than it was yesterday, then you will be the perfect customer that they've always dreamed of. But generally speaking, that's not going to work. So that's where I think a lot of the, work is going to come in from the OEM side. And as somebody that worked in manufacturing and cost improvement and stuff like that, I know that that is a really big deal, especially for suppliers. Typically when they bid on a component, say they sell it to you for $10, that's only going to be the first year. The next year it's going to be $975, then $950, then $925, and every year the price is going to go down as a part of the contract, because the assumption is you as a manufacturer are getting more efficient and we want to split those savings with you. So now the OEM is going to basically have to put the same focus into their products. What can they do to reduce the complexity, make it easier to manufacture, move manufacturing around so that they reduce the complexity of their supply chain while still having, the flexibility that they need to protect their future investments. All of that is going to be a key picture here. But a vehicle's price can't just inflate 25% overnight. If a company wants to stay competitive, they're going to have to put a lot of time into their bottom line to reduce it so that hopefully the end customer doesn't see as big of an impact as they could. In the immediate future, that definitely could be a bottleneck, and you see a lot of people, jumping through hoops and pausing launching new products because they don't know what the future is going to hold. But I think this is something that we've been trying to manage and will continue to manage moving forward because, in a capitalist market, that's just kind of a part of the game. I think another thing that people don't consider is that inflation is always a thing, so it's always built into the plan. So, looking at our BMWs, if you see a 3 Series in 2025, it's significantly more expensive than a BMW 3 Series from 2005, and that's because of inflation. It's not just because it has more electronics and more materials and stuff like that. No matter what, the cost of vehicles go up. And you'll see that every year the MSRP goes up, $1,000, $1,500, whatever it is, to try to keep up with inflation and compensate for overall increased pricing. Now we can try to slow down inflation, but that's not something that's going to stop. It's always going to be a thing. All you can do is try to change how fast or slow inflation grows. So yeah, just stick around for more. We'll see, maybe more companies will move manufacturing to the United States. Maybe more companies will move their supply chain to the United States. I don't know that that's something that would happen overnight, but it is something that they'll probably need to rethink or prioritize over the next couple years if these tariffs stick for as long as they look like they will. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to talk about today. As always, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking. If this is something that you've experienced before, like when I bought my wheels from Japan, I had to pay taxes on it. There's a lot of this going on in the background already. So curious to hear your experience or thoughts on how this is going to be moving forward. But otherwise, that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.